North, the idea of the Writing Center was written to inform students, tutors, and faculty who are not involved in the Writing Center. North believes that those who are involved in the Writing Center have either worked there a minimum of 100 hours, spoke of their own writing for 5 or plus hours, or they have directed the Writing Center themselves. The whole purpose of this article is to explain the ignorance of our society when it comes to their perception of the Writing Center and how tutors can improve and change this misconception. North writes, due to his students, tutors, and faculty misusing the term the Writing Center, in which it is referred to as a skill center or fix-it shop, students can leave their papers and have them edited. This is entirely wrong. This actually is very true, and many people actually do that here at Union College. They come in and they say, oh, can I just drop this paper off and have you guys look at it? Absolutely not. The Writing Center is a place where people can learn not to simply just have their papers fixed without them learning from their mistakes. North specifically states how he's so tired of individuals' ignorance, as many people see the importance of the Writing Center. You know, many people think, I can just drop my paper off here and just so I get a better grade. They don't think of it as a place where they can learn to become a better writer. They just think, I want to get a good grade. And this is mainly what North is saying. He elaborates on the fact that the entirety of the article is just stating the many ways that this ignorance can occur. Although North is infuriated about the ignorance of individuals thinking these things, he's particularly mad at the English department, mainly because he says he admits that this ignorance has even happened with himself and in his teachings. So as the article continues, North just talks about how he has seen these things in his own life. So he gives real life examples. He says, at his own university, under his own supervision, ignorance has occurred in tutoring centers by revealing their mission statement. So, quote unquote, this is what the mission statement says. The university houses the Center for Writing, founded in 1978 to sponsor the interdisciplinary study of writing. Among its projects are a series of summer institutes for areas of teaching of writing, a resource center for writers and teachers of writing, and a tutorial facility for those with special problems in composition. So when I first read this, I didn't think there was a lot of ignorance involved, but then when I reread it, I saw at the very end of the statement it said, with special problems. So in this, he was like, what can we define as a special problem? Are we singling out students if they're special? So he says, by saying special problems, the center is demeaning individuals of their writing weaknesses. This is ignorant because in the sense that nobody can write a perfect paper and everybody makes mistakes. So no one that comes into the Writing Center should be judged for their problems. Everyone's problem is equal. If the center was only to address special problems, what would be defined as a normal problem? And that's kind of how he ends that example on, in which that cannot be defined. We don't know what a normal problem is. We don't know what a special problem is. So that's where he said he's made his own personal mistakes. The second thing that he said was, many students and faculty believe that if a paper is not butchered, that the tutoring is not needed or will not be helpful. As stated before, nobody's paper is perfect, and there's always room for improvement. So you may be thinking, why would North blame the English department when he himself is an English professor? He blames much of the fault of ignorance on the English department because they are aware of how lonely and difficult the writing process can be. Yet, but do not try to learn the correct concept of writing. North found that this is true to several universities of the past 6 years because he has not only worked in the university himself, but he has gone to several universities looking at other people's writing centers, as well as investigating his own. Not only has he gone to other universities, he has looked at articles from which people have stated their own mission statements, where he had picked out ignorance in those as well. He states, English departments spend much time believing in their false sense of knowing. So in other words, although they know that they should be helping their students more, they just think, I want my students to get a good grade, not thinking about the future, how helping them with writing papers could potentially help them with getting a job. So he investigates that a little bit. He says, I wonder what the faculty truly thinks. So he did his own little study. So when faculty members and tutors were asked what their concerns with Writing Center were, they responded with this. Faculty claims that the two primary concerns were solely grammar and punctuation. With misconception between faculty, tutors, and the need of students, confusion was bound to arise. So what people failed to see was that the Writing Center was more than tutoring students' specific skills, but improving their overall writing abilities. So the teachers were all focused on grammar and punctuation, but that wasn't the main issue. The main issue could have been the structure of the paper. The main issue could have been the brainstorming process of creating the paper. So instead of just looking at mechanics, they need to look at the overall process. So North was specifically saying that the faculty needed to investigate more on their writing centers. So then North asked, why would the faculty only want to focus on these specific mechanisms? Wouldn't they want to round their students into better individuals? So quote unquote, North believes that it's because as a profession, teachers are holding on tightly to attitudes and beliefs about teaching and learning of writing. Even though new and better ways have been developed, such as interactive tutoring, English and non-English departments are, so to speak, stuck in their own ways. The only thing that changed over the years is the collaboration between the learning process of the student and the tutor. So instead of the tutor completely doing all of the work on the student's paper, the tutor is going through the paper, pinpointing what could be worked on to improve the writer's ability, not, hey, you need to put a comma here, hey, you need to put a semicolon here. It's more as, we're going to put the comma here because of this, this, and this. We're going to put the semicolon here because this, this, and this. So that way, in the future, the student can do it on their own. North largely looks at being a student-oriented writing center rather than a text-oriented writing center. And that kind of goes back to what I was just saying. Making the transition from text-oriented to student-oriented is a positive change in the writing center. It's going to relieve the name of the fix-it shop because we're rounding the student and not just giving them a great grade. By being student-oriented, it's the tutor's job to produce a better writer, not better writing. It's the tutor's goal to improve the writer's skills, not just their paper. By doing this, the writer can improve several papers rather than just one with their new learned skills. Overall, the primary concern is the process by which the paper is being produced. In this, it is extremely important that the student is willing and wants to learn. In order for the paper to increasingly get better, the student must want to learn and have motivation. This is one of the biggest problems that I personally see as a tutor in our own writing center. There's a lot of people that come in and they say, oh, I just threw this together last night. I did this paper in 15 minutes. Well, then why are you in here? Because this paper obviously isn't something that you're willing to spend time on, something you want to get better. And they're simply just in there to say that they were there. This is why it's looked down on by North when professors have requirements for their students to take in their rough drafts as a mandatory assignment. Although it's a good idea by the professor, more times than none, it's not effective. It's hard on the tutor to teach an unwilling student, but also it makes it hard on the student as their grade will suffer from the lack of discipline that they have. So as a tutor, there's not much that we can do in this situation, but just treat this student like a student that is willing. We have to we have to tutor everyone in the same exact way. But North is just pinpointing that this can be a big difference in an A and a C paper if the student is really, really wanting to become a better writer. So he completely jumps at this point in the article and he starts talking about the student-tutor relationship. He says, the best way to describe a relationship between a tutor and a student is, quote unquote, a tutor is a holistic, devoted to a participant-observer methodology. He says that this is pushing on new aspects and new kinds of evidence of what has been observed in the paper. Regardless of the student's class level, the tutor will begin from where the student is in their skill and move to where the student wants to be on their specific needs. So, for example, let's say a senior comes in with the paper and they do not have a single period throughout their whole entire paper. As a tutor, you can't think, okay, as a senior, this is unacceptable. You need to think not of the person's class level or their grade, but where they are in their writing abilities. Start from scratch, help them to make them be as successful as their other classmates. Bring them up to that level. In addition to the respect of the student, the tutor must also be respectful towards the professor. For example, if the student comes in confused about a poorly designed assignment, the tutor must not pass judgment. The job of the tutor is to help the student make sense of the situation and use that situation to the best of their abilities. Although an assignment might come in and, let's say, for example, the professor wants specific formatting and claims that it's APA. And we're looking at this paper and we know for a fact this is not APA formatting. But this professor wants this done a certain way. So that does make it a little bit harder on us to do the correct formatting because the student doesn't know and we don't know because we've never had this specific professor. Regardless of what the professor's rules are, we need to be respectful to them. We should not talk poorly about any professor at our university, and we must try to help the student to the best of our abilities to follow what their guidelines want to be. In return of us being respectful to the professor should also be respectful to us, knowing that the student is not going to plagiarize work and that they're just trying their best by even coming to the writing center. It's important that the professor does not look down upon the tutor because we are also a student, but kind of work with us in knowing that we're at a more elite place in our writing abilities, and that's why that we are helping other students on campus. So what does the tutor do if they do not know the answer to a question? North says if the tutor is unsure of how to answer a question, they need to use their resources. Resources include the student's professor, the St. Martin's Handbook, in discussion with other fellow tutors. A tutor will know that they are successful when they notice a positive change in the academic changes in the writer. Then the tutor will know that they have met their goal. As a tutor, this is one of the best feelings, is when you work with a student and you see them come back and maybe you're helping them with a paper for a specific assignment and you've been helping them for weeks. And you see their writing abilities go from not knowing how to use commas, run-on sentences, comma splices, and then they come back in 2 weeks after working with them and you just see such a drastic change in their formatting and their in-text citation. And it's such a great feeling. And then their teacher even makes compliments. Wow, you've gotten so much better at your writing, and their grade goes from a C to an A. I personally have experienced this in the Writing Center, and it is a great feeling to know that you truly did help this student and that the student was willing to learn. But this would not be possible without the St. Martin's Handbook, speaking to their professors about what type of formatting they specifically want, and then asking your fellow tutors for help when you are unsure of an answer. In conclusion, the Writing Center is an active place of learning for the student and the tutor, where the student is expected to take lessons taught by the tutor and apply it to their paper. Although this is true that papers do get edited, they are done so by the student and the tutor in collaboration. The tutor points out to the student what needs to be improved. The tutor then teaches the student effective ways to use grammar, punctuation, or formatting in the appropriate way, and the student then applies these new learned lessons to their paper so that they can succeed in the future. Ways that tutors can teach their students. Within this article, as well at Union College, the technique of writing group is performed. Through the writing groups, one student is chosen to have their paper printed off. From there, the class and the tutor will all sit in a circle, And we'll first start out by talking what's great about this paper. What did the student do well? Because you don't want to start off with negatives. That only brings people down. So when you start with positive, it lets them know, hey, I did this right. I will continue to do this. And then we sit around in the circle again, and we talk about what could this paper be improved on? What can this student do to better their paper, to better their grade? This technique is extremely beneficial because as the writer, we hear skills, or the writer hears skills that they may need to fix from different points of view. So it's not just coming from me, it's coming from their classmates, it's coming from friends that they value their opinion from. So North found that in his own experience, this technique helped the instructor learn the same amount as the students as the new writing situations were approached. This technique was a great way to apply the information above that I all talked about throughout this video, and such as a desired tutor relationship in the student-oriented approach. So from this article, I personally have learned the misconceptions that outsiders have about the Writing Center, how ignorance is unknowingly used. We think things not only about the Writing Center, but about other things, and we talk about it, and it may not even be true. So it was showing us ways that ignorance can be known and ways that we can kind of cut that out. The reasons why individuals come to the Writing Center, whether that they want to or they're forced to, what teachers think about the mechanics of the Writing Center, and then what tutors think about the mechanics of the Writing Center. It's about the overall improvement of the student. And then the desired relationship between the tutor and the student. I learned how to address unknown issues, and then I also learned how to apply all this to my students. So this was my video on John North's article, The Idea of the Writing Center.